Good morning, Bill. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. How was school? First school day yesterday. First day of school yesterday.
So, not even only first day of school, first day of middle school,
Okay.
which is big deal, right? Block scheduling, changing of schedules, everything else like that. So it was it was fine. It was good, right? You know, she's too old to be walked in, so we don't do the whole walking. You're not allowed to walk them in anymore anyway. So like, it was all for the drop off, but she was nervous, a little bit apprehensive, things like that. So it was good. And
Hmm.
now, hello, Muhammad. And now she's sick already. So like we had like a skating party I think on Saturday night, and then was out with some people I think at some point over the weekend, and is
Hmm.
now like we might not be going to school today. She already feels bad, so it's kind of like we've already done a rapid this morning. No COVID signs, but like we don't even know the protocol yet because it's brand like does she have to stay home for two? Like
Yeah.
there's so much just up in the air. So
Yeah.
that was yesterday and this morning. So
Well, fun. We had a similar situation after Wednesday. Last Wednesday was our first, and
okay,
Thursday, Scarlett felt sick, and
yeah,
yeah, was super cruddy and stuff like that. So you
yeah,
know, everybody gets around all those kids again, and
yeah.
it's like preschool again.
Exactly. Just
Oh,
just
cesspool.
filthy kid germs just all over the place. No, I'm just
Just
kidding.
everywhere.
Just people. Like
Huh?
we're all filthy animals in our own way, shape, and form.
That's right. You filthy animal. Keep the change.
So how'd it go yesterday? It was just you on here.
It was, and you stopped by. I appreciate that.
Of course. Happy
And
to help.
yeah, I'm glad Alice piped in with her goals. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
we
think
had a
she's
good
already
time.
forgotten
Oh yeah,
them.
probably. She probably forgot that she said them, but I bet that's still her goal.
Maybe, hopefully.
Make new friends.
Sometimes it changes at the speed of light. I mean,
It's
it's
true. I
crazy.
mean, all of a sudden, she's on her deathbed, sick. So things do change quickly.
You know what I wish? I wish in sixth grade if I'd held on to my goals more. Like, good morning, Mike. How
There
are you,
was a
sir?
moment, and I had it, and I let it go. What's up?
Oh man.
Wow. What's up, Gabe? What's
Good
up,
morning,
man? I saw
Gabe.
you last night. I hopped on his live last night. He was talking with, and guys, I'm going to forget her name, but a recruiter or a
Okay.
talent acquisition person. And
Hmm.
Gabe, I like your hat. I know you wear that hat a lot, but I just haven't mentioned I like your hat. So anyway, he was kind of like that same hat all the time.
Nice.
But good morning to everybody. So yeah, yesterday we talked about obviously our weekly goals. Um,
Hmm.
I particularly had to get heavy, and so here, check this out. Speaking of school, flashcards for
Yes,
objections for
that's what I'm
sales
talking
objections.
about. So what do
So
you? Okay, can we go over what you have written on those
yeah,
things?
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about them. So I've got 8 common objections that come up
Okay.
with the service that we provide from um, people who are decision makers, because we don't hop on the call as coaches until there's a decision maker involved. So like like a marketing officer or somebody will
Mhm.
go get some research, do an exploratory call, and then if they decide, yeah, let's do something about this, then they bring on the decision maker, and so that's when we hop on. So you want to just read you what they are, or what do you want to do here?
Hold on, I have a question. I have a couple
Uh-huh.
of questions.
Uh-huh.
So, are you the? Whoa, sorry. Well, yeah. Don't worry, guys. The voice is going to get there eventually, just not today. So, are you the? Forgive these labels, but are you the closer? Right, because you're coming in when the decision maker is there, which is great for process, right?
Right.
Because you have all the decision makers there. So, is the expectation like you're closing the business in that last conversation?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, really,
Okay.
the reason that we're there is because we can provide some more authority, uh, because
Yes.
we
Yes.
can
Mhm.
actually answer the questions that they have probably at that point.
Yes.
And we've been trained to more close on the particular. It's interesting. So I'm still learning the sales cycle. Obviously, I'm still learning how
Sure.
they're shifting around some of the way that works. But
Hmm.
if they're inbound salespeople, because all our leads are inbound.
All of
Everything
them are inbound. Okay.
everything we have is inbound, and which is a great thing. That's kind of what we try and promise
Yeah,
everyone
it's a
else,
great
that if
thing.
you only want to do inbound, we will set it up for your company that you only have to do inbound if you want. Just takes some time. So
Yeah.
so they're not outbound BDR
Okay.
high
So
level
then, yeah.
prospecting
Okay.
people.
Hmm.
So when it comes time to making that happen, we're the ones who were trained to overcome objections well in our coaching and things like that. So we just transfer it to the sales calls. It's the same types of
Yeah.
conversations.
I mean, well, here's the thing. They're supposed to be. They're
Yes.
often not.
Yes.
But the difference between a good coaching call and a good discovery call and a good leadership direct report call, the quality of the conversation should be more or less the same. The meat of what you're covering in those conversations, the questions and the probes and everything are going to be different because you're talking to different people about different things. But the quality of it, intense discovery, lots of questions, not assuming things, and hearing people out are remarkably similar.
100%.
So
Yeah, I love that.
I
Yeah,
love
quality
that.
of the call is the same. Agenda is different.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So
yeah.
okay, so these are inbound leads. Someone is having a conversation with them. How many conversations are they supposed to have with them before someone like you, who's the closer, comes in and gets involved? Is there?
Well, it's kind of a whenever they're ready. So they try not to have more than 2 calls, exploratory calls, and they're not the typical exploratory like you're thinking exploratory, because of the way that the process is set up. So it's the idea is to have one exploratory call to see so they can ask all the logistical stuff about the program and timeframes and outcomes and things like that, and then that way they can report back to Mr. or Mrs. CEO and go, we should do this, and say, okay, we'll bring on the decision maker, and we'll decide if we're a good fit to work together. So it's ideally it's a 2 call process.
Okay.
It does happen sometimes that there's 2 calls before they get to us.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are inbound leads. Someone is going over some basic qualification stuff, right? Maybe talking a little bit of like features and benefits. Hopefully not, because no one's going to be able to position that better than the closer who has got all the collected information, in my opinion. But to each their own. And so then second call, detail call, scope call, whatever you guys call that thing. There's someone like you who's been trained a little bit. They're in there to kind of navigate the details, close things up. And then what happens? Like, do you get the signature? Or does the other person have to go get the signature and the payment and all that stuff?
Yeah. So largely what it's supposed to be is handle any pushback and tell them how we work and ask them when they're ready to start. Like that's kind of the formula for the call, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the call, I actually have the person's on the reps on the call with me the whole time. So it's just both of us. So they're ready with the contract if they're ready to go. So that's how it happens. We close on the call.
Nice.
Like actually sign the paperwork, send it over.
Yeah. Interesting.
And if not, we obviously the classic we lead with, okay, great. When should we call you back, and we're going to send this over, and you have this many questions. How many, who else do we need to talk to? How much time do we need? Should we talk to you Friday or Monday? Like that sort of thing.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
That little thing that you just said, does that happen whenever they're like, well, we're not sure at the end of a call with you?
No, well, no, the goal, like my goal as the closer is to push them off the call or close them, period. Like this is
okay. So that's the point that I'm trying to get to. That is a bifurcated. It is one or the other, right? So if you're not at a full yes, hey, let's leave this at a no for now. You're okay to use that kind of language about like kind of pushing them towards no and everything else. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. The thing I heard you say a second ago was that you're going for the close, but if not, okay, great. When should we chat again? Friday or Monday? No way, man. If you have an agreement that like, hey, we're here with the decision makers. We're here because we all think that this makes sense and we're close. The goal here is to figure out if we can get there, because let's all agree that if we spend enough time together, we'll figure something out, but it might not be in our best interests.
Yeah, exactly. So it's 100% that. What has happened on some of the calls that I've seen is all the right people have been there and they've agreed in principle that they want to do it, but they're like rolling another CRM off that they hate, and so that they're getting that payment off their plate, and they're in talks this week to close it down. And so let's start on Monday. Okay, great. So Monday, what time? Like stuff like that, where it's like a yes, but we can't sit here and sign the contract today with you on the call sort of conversation. Because there's always going to be people that don't like to be closed on the call.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just in principle, they're like, I won't do it today, even if I love you. So it's more of those people.
Okay, interesting.
Like 70-30, I'd say. Of the yeses I've seen, 70%, okay, let's go. And then the 30% are like, I got to do this. Let's talk on Friday.
Interesting. So, okay. So now that I have an idea of the process, I would love to hear your objection cards. Like, what do you have written down on
Yeah. Okay. So this is just what I've pulled from what they've told me, the other coaches, and then what I've watched so far.
Sure.
The one I got, I think I told you about on the air, was the first one, was basically the CEO's like, okay, I told him we can do this. Why am I on the call? Why am I here? I told my marketing director it was fine. So why am I here? So that was an interesting one to deal with, which of course means, I think, did you do this on the air? Did we do this off the air? Because I asked you that and you were like, what do you mean? Why are you on the call? You're the CEO. And I was like, yeah, that's what I said. I was like, what do you mean? Like, you're the CEO. You have to, and this is like not, hey, we're installing this program. This is like changing the way that you're doing your sales and marketing as a whole. You're one team now. You're a revenue team, so you have to be the champion for this. So that's why you're on this call, So that's one. That's a lot of money. Costing. We always talk about costing, right?
Okay.
Why is this so expensive? Because it is.
Okay.
It's 10 to 15K a month for enterprise companies. So I have a couple thoughts on that. I haven't run that one through role play yet. We don't want to talk about certain things on our website. So, a large part of what we do is help them write content for questions that customers have when they're closing. And there are quite a few businesses that I've seen that don't want to talk about how they price or their offerings because they don't want their competitors to see it.
Okay.
And so that's a fun one, I think, to talk to.
So is that a deal breaker for you guys? Will you not work with someone who has that mindset?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. Because the idea, the data says people do about 80% of their shopping before they ever get to you.
Sure. Yeah.
So whether like kind of like the top 5 things that people talk about, cost is like number 2. Like, how much does it cost to work with X or Y or Z? So if you won't even list it, like it seems a little untrustworthy to the common buyer that you won't even talk about your pricing. Now, sure, like you don't have to give me a line item, but just tell me about what the factors are that make your price. From here, give me a range, something like that. So yes, absolutely, it's a deal breaker. We need results fast. How fast does this work?
Okay.
I need results fast, right? So,
and what's your normal window for results? Do you know what that is?
Well, 3 months is when you start seeing results. 6 months is when you actually start seeing like
big results
moving. Yeah, and then 9 months is like, well, we should have done this 5 years ago.
Okay, that's interesting.
But it's an 18-month process most of the time to get it all installed and everything. And then can we go faster because it's an 18-month program?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have that. We're different than other companies. That doesn't apply to us. Anytime we talk vanguarding, and they're like, yeah, but that's not us. We're different. We can't do that. So that's kind of a generic one, but I'm sure I've run across that.
Oh yeah, everybody wants to move fast until it's time for them to actually do their part of the work.
Yeah.
Always like how fast can we get this done? How quick can you do your part? Don't worry about me. Always end up waiting on them.
Yep.
100% of the time.
Website stuff. I know. We used to talk about that at Iron Egg all the time.
I mean, it's still that way now, right? Like,
it's everywhere.
For like sales stuff, like I need these things. Okay, great. Don't worry about me. How fast can we get it? As soon as you get it to me. And then, because people are busy. Right? So I'm not like complaining. This is just like how it always works, at least for me. So.
Yes, Gabe. That's right.
Yeah.
We're the Darth Vader. Or the Emperor, maybe, right? Because the Emperor is actually the one that.
So would you like to hear how I would be doing these calls if I was you based upon, you have more. Okay, please.
Sure, I got 2 more, but yes, absolutely. Well, one of our requirements is you have to hire a content person. You can't, like the CEO can't be writing. Like it has to be.
Nice. That's good.
So do we have to hire right now? Yes, you do. And then last one, I'll save this one last just for you. We've got an old school sales team. You're going to have to convince them that this stuff works. Which is another reason for number 1, Mr. CEO, why are you here? Because you're the champion. You got to tell that sales team. This is how we do it.
So the process is working because you're having a call with someone else in the organization and they're bringing in the decision maker because otherwise you're not scheduling this call for this secondary one. Okay. So I love this whole thing because you get to come in and essentially be like, okay, so if you're the CEO, but I'm talking to someone on your team, right? And let's just say that they're Bill, right? So the secondary call, they come in and like, Jake, super glad to meet you. I've been having great conversations with Bill. And if you're like most of the CEOs I talked about, you probably have a couple of questions about why you're here. So I like to just kind of cover those, because if these aren't a good fit, then like the rest of the conversation doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
You might be thinking, why am I even here? Should we start there? Right.
Yeah.
And I would just be like, okay, boom. Okay, well, here's why we think that this is important, right? Is that if it doesn't start from the leadership, the rest of the team doesn't buy in. How do you feel about that? Oh, right. Put them in that spot so that way they have to like kind of talk it out and talk it out loud.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, great. The next big one that everyone comes to us with is like, they want to know, do they have to hire the content person that we require right now? Right. Well, that hiring is kind of a hard thing to do. Curious, when would you want to hire your content person?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if you're going through this program with us and you're not taking advantage of it, it'd be kind of a waste of money, right? Kind of a waste of time. So when would you want to make the hire? Should we build our timelines around when you can make the hire?
Right.
Because like if that's a keystone thing, like, you're tall enough to ride the ride or you're not. You're either moving in this direction or you're not. So there's not really anything to talk about. It's just about showing them the exit, right? And showing them kind of like, okay, cool. And like kind of going at it from like the negative side of things of like, hey, these are why people decide to not work with us, right?
Yeah.
First one is the CEO isn't even sure why they're coming to a call. Is that how you feel about it? Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I don't know why I'm here. Okay, great. Is it going to work if you're not bought in?
Right.
And then just kind of go along through it that way, right? And then other people say that we have to go talk to the sales team because the sales team is the revenue owners and everything else like that. Okay, great. What do you think that conversation is going to look like, especially if you're not bought in? Put it all on them.
Yeah, 100%. One of the ways I got coached to do it was a similar like format, but the way he likes to do it is come in and be like, hey, we're gonna get that. We're starting the call, and glad to be here with you guys, and I just want to set a couple ground rules for the call if it's okay, because we're going to do this and this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Now, why are we here?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear why are we here. Right. And then let them give you like the two kind of hot spots of that list that you're going to go through anyway and address those. Right. And let them say, well, I mean, honestly, Okay, great. And address it and then go back and vanguard all the rest of the things that you just like, okay, well, great.
Okay. So you're talking about being very open. So that way they pick the first one or two, right?
Yeah.
So then you talk about the things they want to talk about and then you pivot through kind of going through the other topics.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that works. There's value to that. My big concern is like, I think that makes more sense when they're like, well, we need to get a decision maker involved, right? And it's part of their process, but it's not really part of your process. And then you can show up in that second call of like, hey, they said that this meeting makes sense. I understand completely. What do we need to talk about for this meeting to make sense? Boom.
Yeah.
Because it's them asking for the second call. When it's you asking for the second call and then being like, okay, so what do you guys want to talk? Well, you asked us to come here. You said we needed to have another meeting with the decision maker, right? So I would be leading with like a little bit more of like, hey, we had a great conversation with them.
Sure,
they said that you're the ultimate decision maker. So we need to cover some of these things because if these things don't align, we can't work together. And so if we're not on the same page here, that's totally okay. How do you feel about unified front when it comes to leadership and stuff like that? Is that important to you?
Right. And I think that's what's so interesting about these calls is they've actually already, and I'll get to see the video of what they've discussed. So I'll already get to see kind of some of the stuff internally that they have at least brought up. Yeah. And so I will normally have something to lead with. Yeah. Because I'll get to hear. But it is fun because you get to go in and based on what you've already heard, come in and set the conversation that way with either a particular topic. Hey, I heard something in the last call and that concerns me. Can we talk about that? Because if this is not something that you guys can handle, we might not be a great fit for you guys right now. So can we talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
a handful of years ago, I don't remember exactly what year this was in the thing. I was at a sales summit in Florida, and there was a guy. His name's Tom Neeson, very, very, very good sales coach and sales speaker, and he's actually from Dallas. And he was doing this presentation about jiu-jitsu and sales training. And so I of course have my walls up as a martial artist, and I'm not a huge fan whenever people are just like, well, let's just call this Aikido. That's not exactly how this works. Aikido works very specifically, and it's different than other martial arts. So let's just not do that. So this person was doing this, and he was telling this story about going in, and he's a sales coach, right? So he has to sell against Tony Robbins, and I can't think of the other people that he was using in the story.
Yeah.
And so he gets to the final meeting, right? It's a meeting with the board, and so before he walks in, he goes, "Look, I know you're not just talking to me, and that's totally okay. I'm curious who else you're talking about." And they're like, "Well, we're talking to Tony Robbins and a couple of other people," right? So he goes in there and he goes, "Guys, I'm so excited to be here. I'm a little confused though. Like, Tony Robbins has a book, and I understand you're talking to him. Why would you ever consider not working with Tony Robbins? The guy's got a book."
Yeah.
And then someone goes, "Well, we think he might be a little too old school." And he goes, "Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that. Why do you feel that way?"
Yeah.
And then they talk themselves out of working with Tony. And then he brings up the other guy and he goes, "Well, this person does this. Like, they've been around for forever. And like, how do you not work with them?" Well, they will do it if there's room for them to do it. You just have to be detached enough that you're not like oversteering the conversation. You know, like whenever people like slide, you're supposed to turn into the turn, and that'll actually. But everyone goes, "What?" and like hits the brake and flips it the other way, and that's what causes the spin.
Exactly.
Same thing happens here, right?
Yep.
So when you know your space in the market, right? Like, and you know who you lose up to and who you lose down to, you can then begin to position yourself like in that space that you need to be and help them make those decisions. But if it's an ego match, right? If this coach had shown up and been like, "Well, I'm just as good as Tony Robbins," and rah, 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 then it's just super easy for them to be like, "Okay, cool. Where's your book?"
Right.
Well, I don't have one. Okay, well, we're going to go with Tony. Okay, so cool. So own the fact that you don't have a book and the other person does. Then you're going to find out if it's really important to them or not. So same thing with the CEO. Why am I here? Hey, maybe you shouldn't be, but we have found that if the CEO isn't bought into this kind of process, it never works. So if we don't have a conversation like this, and this is not a sales call, this is an alignment call to see if this will work well, because it sounds like your team is interested. We need to make sure that you're interested. Can we talk about that? That is starting from a place of like equal business stature, right? Of like, you're good at what you do. We're really good at what we do. Both are okay. What do you want to talk about now?
100%. Because anytime that you have a CEO, especially of anything more enterprise level or even mid-market, they have confidence. They're in that position and they're not afraid to push back and challenge.
No.
Otherwise, they would not have that seat.
Yeah, that's the reason why they got there. The reason why most C-suite and leaders are D personality types are not because of like anything other than the fact that they make hard decisions based around goals and not around people. The people who make hard decisions and they favor people over the goals do different roles normally, right? Like it's not a judgment call or a knock against anybody. It's like, if you care more about like the people doing the work than the work itself, you need to go be in a situation where like that is allowed and that is okay. But sometimes in business, that's not there. And so you have to be able to fire whole segments of people, right? Whole groups of people and stuff, because it's just not there. You know, talking about the stuff last week. You know,
it's when I was with agency, with one of them in particular, we wouldn't even take RFPs because, RFPs number one. There's a whole bunch of stuff. The RFPs that are tough, but a lot of times you'd end up in front of a board or you'd end up in front of a group of a panel, and it's much harder to have those type of conversations when you have a slide deck behind you hanging, and there's a panel of people in front of you. But the time that we ended up going, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. I just walked up to the CEO, not like intimidatingly, but I kind of walked away from the slides. I kind of walked up towards him. I was like, "Can we just talk for a minute? Like, I know this is all important stuff, and we've sent you the slide deck. You just said a couple things that were concerning. Can we talk about that and close that RFP, right? Against like 5 other competitors." But that process doesn't allow you to have actual conversations unless you break the process. You know,
that's why I'm glad Mike is here, right? Because so many people in the manufacturing space, right? They're very, very smart, and so what they do is they say, "Great, what's our win rate?" Until they say, "Okay, great, for like every 100 RFPs that come in, we win 2. Okay, great. So if we want to close 10 pieces of business, we need to go get like 500 more RFPs." And they run their business off of that way without trying to like, okay, well, that's great. Now can we try to win 2 off of 50, 2 off of maybe 20? Like, and what does that meaningful improvement look like? Well, it might look like sending a salesperson in to be like, "Hey, Kathy, thank you so much for sending this RFP over. I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to toss our hat in the ring if we're not a great fit. Can I ask you a couple of questions
Right.
around the RFP, around what you're looking for, because we might not even need to be in the ring. Is
Right.
that okay? Like that is what a salesperson does in an RFP driven situation. The bad thing about that is the entire RFP process is built to keep salespeople at arm's reach. It's the reason why governments do it. It's the reason why these big organizations do it. And it doesn't benefit the salesperson to jump through all those hoops, because when you do get to that space and you are presenting to that board, they're like, they don't know you. You're not a human to that person. You're just a salesperson to sell a solution. And you have to present to the whole board. So like the energy is weird. There's like 5 or 7 of them against just you and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just
It is.
if you can't walk into that place, like having some background, having some relationships, having a little bit of existing kind of, human view of them. Oh, this is John. He called me because he had some really great questions about our quote. So this is going to be good, guys. He has some great questions.
Yes.
Now the conversation is different, as opposed to, let's see what the guy's got, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, a guy like a Tony Robbins would excel in situations like that, because he's a dynamic public speaker and he can command the room, and we're going to have a memorable. So it's not the best, fit for the work. It's the person that was the most memorable or most dynamic speaker, or things like that. And then, also if you don't know, like, and trust someone before they come in the room, then everyone's just going to look like a number on the chart.
Well, the thing that nobody gets, right? And this is the really, thank you, Gabe. The part that nobody gets is that there is this with everything, right? So while, Tony Robbins is going to show up and be that dynamic speaker, if you haven't had a conversation, you're not going to hit the target. Like, just not, right? And the example that I use with everybody is like, okay, let's say that I'm a chef, right? And so you send out to me, you're like, John, I would love for you to come cook for me and my friends. I want a stellar meal. I want it to be awesome. Okay. Now I have a moment of being like, okay, you know what? Cool. See you Saturday, right? And I'm just going to show up with my cuisine. And that is ego. That is absolutely ego. Because if I care about the experience for you, the person who's bringing me in, right? And I want to make sure that you have a great experience, you're completely happy with everything, that your people are happy and everything, I'm going to ask a couple of questions, because it's not about me at that point, right? So I might say, hey, Jake, how many people are going to come to this soiree that you're having? Is it going to be 2 or is it going to be 200? Because once again, if I don't factor that in, this is going to be a nitmare. What kind of limitations on, do we have any vegans? Do we have anyone who's like on a keto diet? Do we have anyone who doesn't, who's celiac? Like all of these things. Great. Are there any kind of cuisines you'd like me to stay in or away from? How many courses? How long is the party going to take? And if I ask all those questions, I'm going to be able to hit the target 98 times out of 100. But if I don't ask those questions, I might hit it 10 times out of 100 or 5 times out of 100, because it only takes one person being like, oh my God, is this pork? I don't eat pork. And then the whole thing is ruined. And it's only ruined because your ego got in the way. And this is what's happening in sales conversations constantly. People aren't listening because they want to make it about them, or they've got their talking points from marketing and stuff like this. And it's just autopiloting the conversation, and it sucks. It's like,
and it makes you a commodity.
It does make you a commodity, for sure.
When you do come in and you actually consult, or you're the chef in your metaphor here, that's not only, maybe it's not like this huge splash that makes you memorable, but it makes you desirable to work with, first off, and that's a huge leg up. So.
Yeah. Well, and on the other side of it is like, as a chef, let's pretend that I'm like the most carnivore driven chef ever. Like I am Jocko's personal chef, right? So it's like steak and broccoli only, right? And then I'm talking to this people, I'm like, you cook for Jocko? I want you to cook for me. Okay, cool. And like, hold on a second. Can I ask you a couple of questions? What kind of cuisine do you like? Well, we like Indian fusion and like no meat. Okay, you don't want me.
No.
Right? So I can save myself the heartache. I can save them a bad experience because I asked a couple of questions and I was unattached to the outcome.
Yep.
That's the skepticism in Sherpa. The S stands for skepticism. Let me make sure that I can deliver the thing the way that you want it to give you a great experience, or let's save everybody the time and the trouble.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. Totally true, Mike. I mean, the last thing anybody wants to be is a commodity. I mean,
see, you say that, but how many business owners do you see trying to commoditize their business? Like, trying to do these things to make it a commodity, because then it's easier to compare apples to apples, and they think they're going to win more. You're not going to win more. You're going to lose just as much as you are now after the pain of trying to like turn yourself into a bottom dollar, bottom of the bucket kind of person.
But do they actually want to be a commodity, or are they just lazy? Are they just trying to find the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week way to make money?
I think that's a very small segment, honestly. Like I think that the marketing bro, let me just have the lifestyle business that like makes me money and I don't really have to do anything. I think that's the dream for most people. And then once you get into it and you make it past that first 30 days, because lots of people don't even make it 30 days, and then they're like, I'm just a worker bee. It's okay. But like if you make it past the first 30 days, you realize like that's not a thing. Like even Tim Ferriss will tell you now, like he's not doing 4 hours of work each week and stuff like that. Now, it is easier to sell a commodity. Mike has that correct in the comments. But the bad thing about it is you can't ever charge a premium for a commodity unless you go like hyper salesy. The goal is to keep it out of the commodity race. Well, so that's why who else you talking to? Well, we're talking to these people over here. Okay, interesting. When you compare us to them, what's important in your mind?
Right.
Well, I want to know, this and that. Okay, great. And then you talk to those talking points, but you're trying to like kind of move it away from that thing, so that way you're not compares, because you take any two marketing proposals and you put them next to each other. It's not apples to apples. This person is throwing in extra hours. This person is throwing in hosting and maintenance and everything else like that. So it doesn't really work very well. And so then people try to force it with an RFP. We want you to send this in our formatting and everything else like that.
Right.
It's like, if you're a premium product, you have to sell it as a premium product, and trying to sell it as a commodity product, it doesn't work. Like, Himalayan pink salt is more expensive than regular table salt.
Right.
Less people use it, but the people who do use it like it. So there's room for both. But if you want to sell it at premium, you have to figure out a way to do that. And it's not being commodity, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think it depends on the market and what you're selling and things like
Agreed.
that. Obviously, products are going to be a more commoditized type market. Services are not as commodity driven as products are, because you're literally, and the product side, you're typically selling your brand of this fix that's tangible. Whereas on the service side, you're fixing the same problems, but like you said, the way you fix it, the hours, there's just always some special sauce on the service side. No one's offering is exactly quite the same. Whereas you literally could have table salt in a blue or table salt in a white bottle, but it's the exact same table salt. We're not trying to tell you any different. Just buy ours because you like our label better. That's more from the commodity side where I think about.
Yeah. Well,
okay, your
commodity is about being cheaper, right? Travis, I know some other people who are very good at commodity salespeople, like insurance person are kind of commodity. You're supposed to have it. Let's just get the cheapest thing ever. And then it's like these salespeople know if you're not set up for success there, it's potentially as bad as not working with a coach or something like that. That is the other part, Mike. Like if you're chopping your price down to the lowest tier that you possibly can, so that way you can be competitive against other, like, do you even need to compete against those people? Like, this kind of goes back to the conversation I was talking about the other day, where the guy was like, well, will you do it for $500? No. You can go to Upwork and find someone for less than $500, and they will build you a CRM, because it sounds like you don't think there's any strategy connected to this. In which case,
I'm going with the volume versus service pendulum. The higher you get towards service, the less you're a commodity, because you have to pay for the higher levels of service you go to. And then the lower you go towards the commodity, the less service you can give. So it just depends where you are in that.
Yeah. And that's where my favorite line is. I can't do that for that price and deliver a good experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually watched a call yesterday where that was the response to the, will you negotiate your price? Like, I'm sorry. I can't deliver the level of service that we're committed to at that price point.
Yeah. If I'm watching the clock every time we meet, I'm not focused on you and your issues, and it's not going to behoove either one of us. We should wait.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do the same.
Exactly. Cool, man. Well,
good calls today, dude. Like this is my favorite kind of chat. And normally we don't get this in the weeds on the show. Normally we kind of keep it a little top level, but man, like this is the stuff I enjoy.
Yeah, weeds are fun. Good. If you guys want more weeds, let us know in the comments. We can do more weeds conversations for sure too.
If you like weeds, comment weeds. If you like, I almost said fluff, strategy? But I don't even think it's fluff.
Top level.
Top level. Yeah.
Macro or micro?
Thank you. for the your options. Okay, cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay, well, let's wrap. We've got a guest coming on Friday, like you said, so we'll talk more about that tomorrow.
Yes.
Fill you in.
Jake is tasked with making the invites for these, so I'm gonna give a little public accountability here. Jake is running the comments now because he's better at it than I am. He's also creating invites for Fridays, so that way we can share these guests and ask you guys to share it as well. Because if you're interested in it, somebody else might be interested in it. This Friday is Mike Simmons. He's another sales nerd, sales coach, sales consultant. He's done some really cool stuff, and his whiteboard game is next level. You're going to be jealous. You're going to be jealous. It's going to be rad.
Will be. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, Gabe. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Dylan.
Thanks,
you,
Michelle,
for dropping by. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
If you're watching this later and you're on Team Replay, leave a comment with how you feel about commodity selling versus customized selling. Like, which one do you prefer? Where do you see the problems? And how, any thoughts on that would be great, because we're two nerds up here. How do other people talk about it?
More weeds. Let's do more weeds.
More weeds. Yes, absolutely.
All right, guys. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
See you, Bill.
See you, Bill.